What if I told you that everything you think you know about money is wrong? Seriously, what if the secret to building real wealth wasn't about getting more, but about needing less? Imagine your bank account gets wiped clean. Poof, gone. All you have is $27 to get you through the next 24 hours. What do? Where do you even start? Do you panic buy a lifetime supply of instant noodles? Do you invest it all in a sketchy crypto coin some guy on Reddit told you about? This isn't a hypothetical, this was my reality. I willingly, and some might say foolishly, decided to live on just $27 a day for an entire year. And let me tell you, it completely rewired my brain. This wasn't some kind of poverty tourism, it wasn't a stunt for a YouTube channel, even though the clicks would have been insane. It was a personal challenge, a hard reset on my entire life. It started, as many terrible ideas do, with a bet. I was out with my friends, all of us complaining about being broke while simultaneously ordering a second round of overpriced cocktails. I made a bold, slightly tipsy declaration. I bet I could be happier with less, like way less. My friend, let's call him Dave because that's his name, and he deserves to be called out, laughed in my face. Dave bet me $1,000, money I definitely couldn't afford to lose, that I couldn't live on the poverty line for a year. The next morning the hangover was real and so was the cold, hard reality of what I'd agreed to. A whole year, 365 days, $9,855 for the entire year. It sounded like a lot until you realized it had to cover rent, utilities, food, everything. My fancy downtown apartment was the first thing to go. Finding a new place to live on this budget was my first major hurdle. I dove deep into the dark corners of Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace. I eventually found a small room in a house way out in the suburbs, sharing with 3 other people. My commute to the city tripled in time, but my rent was slashed by 75%. Selling my car was another huge, painful step. When you have less than $10 a day for meals, food becomes an obsession. It's a math problem you have to solve 3 times a day. My weekly grocery trip transformed from a casual stroll into a strategic military operation. I became intimately familiar with the price per ounce of everything. Lentils, beans, rice, and oats became my best friends. They were cheap, filling, and versatile. I learned that potatoes are a miracle food sent from the heavens. You can boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew. The possibilities were, if not endless, at least sufficient. My diet became incredibly simple and surprisingly healthier. Gone were the processed snacks, the sugary drinks, the last-minute pizza orders. My body was suddenly running on whole foods, not because I was on a health kick, but because I literally couldn't afford the junk. There were moments of pure desperation. I remember standing in the grocery store staring at a pint of Ben & Jerry's like it was a long-lost lover. It cost nearly a third of my daily budget. Buying it would mean skipping a meal later. The biggest lesson was learning to combat food waste. Every scrap of food was precious. That slightly soft carrot, it's going in a soup, the stalk of the broccoli getting shredded for a slaw. How do you hang out with friends when you're broke? My social life used to revolve around spending money, going out for dinner, grabbing drinks, seeing movies, attending concerts. All of those activities were now completely off the table. For the first month, I became a hermit. I declined every invitation, making up lame excuses. Sorry, I have to, alphabetize my sock drawer. I realized I had a choice. I could either become a lonely recluse or get creative. I chose creative. I had to be honest with my friends. To my surprise, most of them were incredibly supportive. They didn't ditch me, they adapted. Instead of asking me to go to a fancy restaurant, they started suggesting free activities. This shift completely changed the dynamic of my friendships. Our conversations were no longer happening over the distraction of a loud bar or a movie screen. We were actually connecting on a deeper level. One time, for my birthday, instead of taking me out, they all chipped in and bought me a huge bag of fancy coffee beans, a luxury I hadn't been able to afford for months. It was the most thoughtful gift I had ever received. It wasn't about the monetary value, it was about them seeing me and understanding my struggle. Giving up my car felt like a downgrade, but it opened up a whole new world, the world of public transportation. My daily commute became an adventure, and I don't always mean that in a good way. I learned the bus schedule by heart. The bus became my mobile university. I had so much extra time during my commute that I started reading again. I devoured books, I listened to podcasts, I learned more in that year on the bus than I had in the previous 5 years driving my car. Walking also became a primary mode of transportation. I started walking everywhere that was within a 2-mile radius. I discovered little neighborhood parks, quirky local shops, and amazing street art that I had always just sped past in my car. It slowed my life down in the best way possible. I wasn't just racing from point A to point B anymore. I was experiencing the journey in between. I learned that transportation isn't just about getting somewhere. It's about how you choose to move through the world. It wasn't all peaceful sunsets and personal growth epiphanies. My absolute lowest point came about 6 months in. I call it the Great Ramen Noodle Meltdown of 2024. I had miscalculated my budget for the week, leaving me with only a few dollars for food. I was staring at my dinner, a sad bowl of salty noodles for the third night in a row, and I just snapped. It wasn't about the noodles, it was about everything. The exhaustion of constantly counting pennies, of saying no to everything, of feeling like I was on the outside looking in. I sat there with my sad bowl of ramen on the verge of tears and just let myself feel it all. I didn't try to push it away or pretend it wasn't happening. And in that moment of surrender, something shifted. I realized that this feeling, this struggle, was part of the process. It reminded me that for millions of people, this isn't a one-year challenge, it's their permanent reality. And they don't have the option of just calling it quits. The meltdown didn't break me, it fired me up. It taught me that resilience isn't about never falling, it's about how you get back up. Before this year, my definition of wealth was simple. It was a number in a bank account. It was the price tag on my car, the brand name on my clothes. This experiment shattered that definition into a million pieces. I learned that true wealth has very little to do with money. True wealth is having the time to read a book on a Tuesday afternoon. It's having the skills to cook a delicious meal from scratch for the people you love. It's about being resourceful and self-sufficient. Wealth is a strong community. Wealth is also about health, both mental and physical. By walking everywhere and eating simple, whole foods, I got into the best shape of my life. But more importantly, my mental health improved dramatically. When I stepped off that hamster wheel, the humming stopped. So, what is the big wealth secret I discovered? It's this. Financial wealth is a tool, but it's not the goal. The goal is a rich life, and a rich life is measured in freedom, connection, and purpose. At the end of the year, my life didn't just snap back to the way it was before. I didn't go back to my expensive apartment or my fancy car, I found a middle ground. The key is that my choices are now conscious. I know the difference between what I want and what I need. You don't have to live on $27 a day for a year to have this kind of epiphany. Please don't, it was brutal. But you can apply the principles to your own life. Start small. Try a no-spend weekend. Challenge yourself to eat for a week on a ridiculously small budget. The point is to break the spell that consumer culture has on us. We're constantly told that we're not enough, that we need this cream to look younger, this car to look cooler, this phone to be more connected. It's a lie. You are already enough. You already have access to the most important sources of joy, your relationships, your creativity, your community, and the natural world. These things are free. You just have to make the time and space to appreciate them. So, I'll ask you again. What if your bank account was wiped clean tomorrow? What if you only had $27? Would it be the end of the world? Or would it be the beginning of a new way of seeing it? My journey taught me that it's the latter. It taught me that true freedom isn't about having an unlimited budget. It's about having your happiness not depend on a budget at all. Find your own version of the $27 challenge. Discover what you truly value. I promise you, the wealth you uncover will be worth far more than money can buy.